Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who wasn't the most attractive person in the room, but something about them made it impossible to look away? And then there's the opposite, someone who on paper seems perfect, but the moment they leave, you don't think about them again. That's the power of vibe. It's not about looks, status, or saying all the right things. It's about energy, the feeling you leave behind, the presence that makes someone say, there's just something about her. This isn't about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about stepping into the version of you that radiates self-worth, fun, mystery, and depth. The woman who turns heads, keeps hearts, and becomes the vibe he simply can't replace. So today, I want to show you exactly how to become that woman without changing who you are and without ever chasing a man again. Your energy is your brand. It's not your looks, your job title, or even your wit that makes someone remember you. It's how they feel in your presence. That's the vibe, and that vibe speaks volumes before you even say a word. Most people focus on what to say, what to text, how to win someone over, but the truth is, people are drawn to how you make them feel about themselves when they're around you. Your energy can be warm, confident, grounded, playful, curious, whatever is authentic to you. But when you own it, you become magnetic in a way that's impossible to fake. Think about it. Have you ever been around someone who just radiated good energy? They weren't the loudest. They didn't have to dominate the conversation, but they made you feel seen, safe, excited, alive. That's not an accident. That's someone who knows how to bring their full presence into a room. That's someone who values themselves enough not to shrink, not to posture, and not to try too hard. They're just there, comfortable in their own skin, and that makes everyone else comfortable too. When you're trying to attract someone or deepen a connection, that's the energy you want to lead with. But it has to be real. You can't fake confidence for long. You can't pretend to be relaxed when your mind is spinning with insecurity. That's why the first step to being the vibe he can't replace isn't about him at all. It's about you. How do you feel when you walk into a room? Do you feel proud of yourself? Do you like who you are? Do you know what you bring to the table, not just romantically, but as a human being? If the answer is yes, that energy spills into everything. You don't over-explain yourself. You don't chase validation. You're selective with your time. You ask better questions. You listen fully. And guess what? People start leaning in. They start wanting to be around you more. They feel something different, something refreshing, in a world full of shallow small talk and surface-level attraction. One thing that makes people truly unforgettable is presence. Presence is rare. Most people are either stuck in their heads, worrying about what others think of them, or they're distracted, checking their phones, planning what to say next, never really with the person in front of them. You want to be different? Be present. When you talk to someone, actually talk to them. Look at them. Listen to them. Not because it's a strategy, but because you've learned that presence is a gift and you're the kind of woman who knows how to give that gift. When a man meets a woman with that kind of presence, she stands out. Not because she's trying to prove anything, but because she's rooted, calm, confident. And even if he doesn't consciously understand why, something in him knows this is rare. And we all know people don't value what's common. They value what's rare, what's hard to find, what makes them feel more connected to themselves. So no, being the vibe he can't replace isn't about impressing him with your achievements or dressing a certain way or being easy to talk to. It's about bringing an energy that elevates the moment, that gives more than it takes, that shows you know your worth so deeply you don't need to say a word about it. And when you own that space, when you walk into a room like you belong in it, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you've stopped questioning whether you deserve love and respect, people notice. Especially men who are ready for a real connection. Confidence isn't about being loud, being perfect, or pretending you don't care. It's about knowing your value deeply enough that you don't need someone else to validate it. That's the heart of high standards with low ego. It's the balance that makes you magnetic, not needy, not arrogant, just grounded in who you are and what you want. Most people either lower their standards to keep someone around or inflate their ego to protect themselves from being hurt. Neither one leads to a fulfilling connection. What truly sets someone apart is the ability to say, I know what I bring, I'm proud of it, and I'm not afraid to walk away if this isn't aligned. When you have high standards, you're not being picky or difficult, you're being intentional. You know the difference between chemistry and compatibility. You're not impressed just because someone is attractive or gives you attention. You're interested in how they treat you, how they show up, whether their values align with yours. High standards don't mean you expect perfection. They mean you've done the work to know what you deserve, and you're not going to accept crumbs when you know you're worthy of a full meal. But here's the key: you hold those standards without ego. You don't need to put someone else down to feel secure. You don't need to play games or make someone chase you to feel wanted. That's ego. Ego is reactive, defensive, and rooted in fear. Confidence is calm. Confidence is choosing someone because they add value to your life, not because you're trying to prove your worth by getting them to stay. You don't panic if they pull away. You don't start chasing, overthinking, or bending over backwards to be chosen. You simply notice the change, step back, and let people show you who they are. When you operate from this place, you become deeply attractive, not in a superficial way, but in a way that makes someone realize you're not just another option. You don't need to convince someone to like you. You let them earn access to you. There's no desperation in your energy, no rush, just clarity. That kind of vibe makes people step up or step out. And either way you win, because you'd rather be alone than in a relationship where you're constantly questioning your value. People often think love is about sacrificing your needs for someone else's happiness, but real love, healthy love, thrives on mutual respect, and respect begins with how you respect yourself. When you honor your standards, you teach people how to treat you. You're not afraid to walk away from mixed signals, breadcrumbing, or half-effort communication. You don't ghost, but you do go silent when it's clear the energy is one-sided. That silence isn't punishment, it's self-respect. This way of being doesn't just protect you from getting hurt, it actually creates space for the right person to find you. The kind of man who's ready for a relationship, who values consistency, who wants a woman with depth, clarity, and emotional maturity. When he meets someone with high standards and low ego, he doesn't feel controlled, he feels inspired. He knows he can't coast, he wants to rise to meet her, not out of pressure, but out of admiration. And when you embody this mindset, you stop fearing rejection. You realize that when someone doesn't meet your standards, it's not personal, it's just not a match. And that's okay. You don't lose sleep over it. You trust that what's meant for you will feel aligned, not chaotic. And until then, you don't shrink your standards to make someone stay. You elevate your self-worth so that when the right person comes, they recognize your value instantly because you've been living it all along. Being open doesn't mean being an open book. There's a difference between sharing to connect and oversharing in an attempt to fast-track intimacy. Real connection takes time, and mystery isn't about being distant or withholding. It's about creating space for curiosity. It's about understanding that not everything needs to be revealed all at once. In a world where people are constantly broadcasting their lives, there's something incredibly powerful about a woman who knows how to be warm and open while still keeping a sense of mystery. When you meet someone you're interested in, the natural impulse is to connect quickly. You want them to understand you, to see the real you. But the mistake a lot of people make is mistaking vulnerability for full transparency. They spill everything: past relationships, family drama, deep insecurities. Within the first few conversations, it comes from a good place, a desire to be authentic. But too much, too soon, can overwhelm the connection before it's even had a chance to build. Mystery is not a game. It's not about playing hard to get or pretending to be aloof. It's about pacing. It's about allowing someone to discover you layer by layer rather than handing them the whole story in one sitting. Think of it like a great book. What keeps you turning the pages isn't knowing everything right away. It's the intrigue, the unfolding, the anticipation. You become irresistible not by what you give away instantly, but by what you hold with intention. The truth is, we value what we have to earn, and emotional access is no different. When you allow someone to slowly earn your trust, your stories, your deeper side, it builds a sense of connection that's based on respect, not just chemistry. You're not trying to impress or shock them into staying. You're letting them experience you over time. That's how you create a connection that's not just intense, but lasting. It's also about boundaries. When you reveal everything about yourself early on, you may be doing it because you want to be accepted for who you are. But true acceptance doesn't come from a flood of information. It comes from shared experience, mutual effort, and consistent presence. You don't need to tell someone your life story to show them you're open. You show it through your energy, your attentiveness, your willingness to be real in the moment without handing over all the most sacred parts of yourself too soon. There's also a confidence that comes with holding something back, not in a manipulative way, but in a self-assured way. You're not worried about whether someone approves of you because you're not trying to be instantly understood. You know you're worth getting to know. You're not rushing to prove your value. You're allowing it to reveal itself naturally. That kind of self-possession is rare, and that's what makes it unforgettable. When someone leaves a conversation with you still thinking about something you said, still wondering about your story, still feeling like they want to know more, that's when you know you've created mystery in a meaningful way. It's not because you are holding back out of fear, it's because you were intentional. You let the moment be enough. You trusted that who you are is compelling, and that someone who's truly worth your time will enjoy discovering more about you slowly. In relationships, especially early on, less is often more. Not in terms of effort or affection, but in terms of emotional download. Share pieces of yourself, but leave room for someone to ask questions. Let them earn your trust. Let them feel like getting to know you is a journey, not a quick glance. Because when a man feels like he's still discovering you after weeks or months, not because you're hiding, but because you're unfolding, he won't want to stop. And that's how you become the kind of woman he can't forget. One of the most magnetic qualities a woman can have is the ability to challenge a man with warmth. It's not about being combative, cold, or difficult for the sake of control. It's about having enough self-respect and clarity that you don't just go along with everything to keep the peace or win someone's approval. At the same time, it's doing so with a sense of kindness, humor, and openness that makes you feel approachable and real. This balance of strength and softness is powerful, it's rare, and it's something people remember. So many people fall into the trap of being agreeable, especially early on. We're taught to keep things light, avoid friction, and say yes to avoid coming across as high maintenance or difficult. But what actually creates emotional connection isn't agreement, it's engagement. When you're able to engage someone with your own thoughts, perspectives, and even playful challenges, it wakes them up. It lets them know you're not just there to be liked, you're there to be real. And a woman who can lovingly challenge a man isn't afraid to speak her mind. If something feels off, she says it. If a joke crosses a line, she calls it out. Not with hostility, but with confidence. And often with playfulness. Maybe it's a raised eyebrow, a teasing remark, or a firm but calm response. The point is, she doesn't let things slide just to avoid discomfort. That self-respect sends a powerful message, not just to him, but to herself. She's showing that her voice matters, her boundaries matter, and her opinion is part of the conversation. But here's where the warmth comes in. Challenge without compassion becomes defensiveness. If you push too hard or correct someone with a sharp tone, it can create distance. What makes a challenge magnetic is when it's delivered with heart, with lightness, with a touch of fun. It's the difference between saying, "That's ridiculous, why would you think that?" and saying, "Wait, you actually believe that? You're going to have to explain that one to me." Same point, totally different energy. When you bring warmth to your assertiveness, people don't feel judged, they feel seen, and surprisingly, this makes people open up even more. A man who's used to being flattered or agreed with all the time will lean in when someone gently calls him out or makes him think twice about what he just said. It's refreshing. It creates tension, the good kind, the kind that builds attraction and makes someone feel challenged and respected at the same time. This isn't about picking fights or constantly testing someone. It's about knowing when to hold your ground and how to do it with emotional intelligence. It's knowing that your needs, your feelings, your truth have just as much weight in the conversation as his. And that if the two of you are going to build something meaningful, it has to be built on honesty and respect, not passive agreement. The most attractive people aren't the ones who never disagree. They're the ones who make disagreement feel safe. When you can say, I see it differently, or that doesn't sit right with me, or even just, you're going to have to earn that opinion. With a smile and strong eye contact, you create space for something deeper than surface level attraction. You create a dynamic where you're both being challenged to grow, to reflect, to communicate better, and that's what makes someone stick around. Because the truth is, it's easy to forget someone who's agreeable, but it's hard to forget someone who made you laugh, think, stretch, and reflect. Someone who was never afraid to push you, but always did it with love. That's the kind of connection that lingers. That's the kind of woman a man can't replace. When you live a life that excites you, with or without a partner, you become magnetic. There is nothing more attractive than a woman who is full, not waiting to be filled. Independence isn't about doing everything alone or refusing to need anyone. It's about having a life that's already meaningful and complete, so anyone who enters it becomes an addition, not a necessity. You're not waiting to be rescued, you're already thriving, and that energy changes everything about how you show up in love. Too many people fall into the trap of making their romantic life the center of their emotional world. The moment someone interesting comes along, they unconsciously start to bend their schedules, abandon their passions, and pour all their emotional energy into seeing where things go. They stop living their own story and start living for the possibility of a relationship. That shift might feel like love, but it's actually need. And neediness, no matter how subtle, is felt. It creates pressure, it makes the connection feel heavy, and ironically, it pushes the other person away. But when you stay rooted in your own life, your goals, your friendships, your personal growth, you give off a very different vibe. You're not afraid to be alone because you're not lonely in your own company. You have things to look forward to outside of a date. You're excited about your projects, your workouts, your plans, your future. And that creates an energy of freedom. It makes the connection feel lighter, more enjoyable, less like something that has to work, and more like something that gets to grow naturally. A man can feel when you've made him your emotional center. He might not be able to put it into words, but he'll feel the shift in energy, the unspoken pressure to perform, to respond, to meet expectations. And that weight, even if it's never spoken aloud, can kill attraction. But when he meets a woman who's independent, who's clearly living a full life already, that pressure disappears. Instead, he feels invited, drawn in. He starts to wonder how he can fit into your world, rather than feeling like you're trying to merge your entire life into his. And here's the twist. When you live this way, you actually become more emotionally available, not less, because you're not constantly scanning the connection for signs of danger. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're not waiting for someone to give your life meaning. You're showing up from a place of wholeness, and that kind of energy is not only attractive, it's secure, calming, and deeply inspiring. People often confuse independence with distance, but true independence doesn't push people away. It pulls the right people in. It says, I want you, but I don't need you to complete me. That statement carries power. It means you're choosing someone, not clinging to them. And when someone knows you're with them because you want to be, not because you're afraid of being alone, it changes the whole dynamic. It makes them want to invest more, to rise to meet you, to contribute to the life you're already building. Living this way isn't just good for your relationships, it's good for your soul. It reminds you that love is a bonus, not a requirement. That the best relationships happen when two full people come together, not to fix each other, but to enjoy each other. And when you embody that energy, you naturally attract people who respect, admire, and are drawn to the independence you bring to the table. Because deep down, everyone wants to be with someone who inspires them to be more, not someone who needs them to feel whole. Physical attraction might spark interest, but it's character that sustains connection. What makes someone truly unforgettable is how consistently they show up, not just when it's easy, not just when it's exciting, but over time through real moments. The world is full of people who can impress you in the first 10 minutes. That's not hard. The hard part is showing up with integrity, kindness, and emotional presence again and again. When you're that person, when your words match your actions, and your energy remains stable regardless of external circumstances, you become rare. And people don't forget rare. In dating, a lot of people focus on the big moves, what to wear, what to say, how to keep things exciting. But what really builds trust, attraction, and long-term interest is how consistently someone experiences your presence. Are you warm even when you're tired? Are you respectful even when you're annoyed? Are you honest even when it would be easier to hide? Those moments of consistency, of showing up as your full self in the highs and the lows, are what form the foundation of something real. A woman with consistent character doesn't need to prove anything. Her energy speaks for her. She doesn't shift her values to please whoever's in front of her. She doesn't play the cool girl and then unravel when she doesn't get her way. She's grounded, not perfect, but aware. She can own her emotions without letting them control her, and that creates safety, not just for her, but for the person she's with. Safety in attraction doesn't mean boring. It means solid. When a man knows he's not walking into an emotional minefield, when he knows he can trust your reactions, your boundaries, your presence, he relaxes. That kind of peace is rare, and ironically, it makes you even more exciting to be around, because now there's room to build. There's room for depth. There's room for something that lasts beyond the surface. What's important to remember is that character isn't something you perform, it's something you live. It's in how you treat the waiter. It's in how you talk about your friends. It's in how you handle conflict. Do you gossip? Do you hold grudges? Or do you bring a sense of grace even when people let you down? These subtle patterns reveal who you are more than any curated first impression ever could. And the people who are emotionally intelligent enough to see them, those are the people worth attracting. Consistency also means emotional responsibility. You don't make someone else responsible for your happiness. You don't put your self-worth in their hands. You can ask for support, express your needs, be vulnerable, but you're not waiting for someone to fix you. That kind of ownership is incredibly attractive because it shows you're not here to drain a relationship, you're here to contribute to one. And this level of consistency doesn't mean you never struggle or have off days. It means even in those moments, you're self-aware. You don't lash out without reflection. You communicate instead of withdrawing. You take a breath before reacting. And because of that, you create a relationship where both people feel emotionally safe and inspired to keep growing. In the end, people don't remember what you wore or how witty your jokes were. They remember how you made them feel and how often they could count on you to be that person. Were you kind when it wasn't convenient? Were you honest even when it was hard? Were you the same person on a bad day that you were on a good one? That kind of consistency in character doesn't just make you attractive, it makes you irreplaceable. So here's what I want you to take with you. You don't become the vibe he can't replace by being someone you're not. You become it by coming home to who you really are and owning it with your energy, with your standards, with the way you share yourself slowly, challenge with love, live independently, and stay true to your values. You don't need to chase, convince, or prove your worth to anyone. The right person won't need to be persuaded, they'll feel it. In your presence, in your energy, in your self-respect. And the moment you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself, you become unforgettable. Because beauty fades, status changes, but vibe, the kind that comes from self-worth, depth, and consistency, that's the thing no one else can copy. That's the version of you the right man won't just want to be around, he'll feel lucky to have found. So stop trying to be liked by everyone. Be respected by yourself. Be the vibe that turns heads, holds hearts, and leaves a lasting imprint long after the conversation ends. Be the vibe he can't replace.